We are on air. Welcome, everyone, to the Thursday, January 19th, 2023 regular meeting of the Windsor Unified School District Board of Trustees. Happy New Year to all. Ms. Cox, could we have a roll call, please?
President Adams.
Here.
Vice President Lopez.
Here.
Trustee Ahmad.
Here.
Trustee Kagorno.
Here.
Trustee Carnation.
Here.
Student Board Member Jackson Caligari.
Here. Thank you. If you would all rise and face the flag, I will lead us in the flag salute. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Superintendent Decker, do we have a report out of closed session? Okay, yep, we do have an item on as 5.5, which is good news. Before we go to adjustments to the agenda, Ms. Cox, can you help us understand these lovely balloons that?
I will help you understand. I was going to say my superintendent's report. I'll do my report now. How about that?
Okay.
So January is Board Member Appreciation Month, and this is just to appreciate all the work that you do. So thank you. I'm definitely the mastermind, of course, behind all of this. We all know that's not true. So Jen's looking out for you, and just want to say thank you. We know this is actually a lot of work, and you do it well. So appreciate you all.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Jen. We do not have an assigned staff person to help us directly with the board, and that is you, which is mostly to keep us in line and let us know what we need to do and remind us of deadlines. So thank you for helping us do our job. Appreciate it. Okay. With that, we will go, any adjustments to the agenda? Item 3.1.
Yes.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Hold on one second. Do you want me to say this? Should we approve that?
We'll do that when we go to consent.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you. Okay. Item 3.2, a public comment on non-agenda items. I will read, any person may address the board on any consent item or items not listed on the agenda. Pursuant to the Brown Act, during this period, the board is not allowed and will not consider or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. We ask that public comment be spoken in the microphone from the podium. In accordance with Board Policy 9323, individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item. The board shall limit a total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation, depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. And with that, is there any public comment on either non-agenda items or our consent calendar tonight?
Hi, I'm Kelly Gillingham. I'm Cali PTA president, and I have 2 kids, an 8th grader and a 4th grader at Cali. I went to the last meeting in December, and I was shocked to hear about the grant for the preschool coming to Cali. I don't approve of that. That is just really wrong. I really hope you guys don't think you're going to do it. We are overcrowded. We have no space for more preschoolers to come onto campus. We can barely keep the TK. We don't even have enough space for the TK. What happened? This was funny. On the first day, we had 5 TK classes. What happened to that 5th class? I mean, that's a pretty bad thing to have the teacher leave in the first month. I think you guys need to be aware this isn't working out. Our admin and our staff they don't have the time, space to deal with this. And I'm really disappointed in how this is all laying out for Cali. You guys I feel like you're trying to make us this great thing, but we're not. It's sort of been falling off a little bit. I shouldn't say a little bit, a lot. Definitely since the pandemic. I have a 4th grader, and she was home at the most important time to have the Spanish immersion. program. And it's been really rough. It's been really rough for the 3rd and 4th and 5th graders getting Spanish, learning it. And I can't believe you're not getting the resources to get those kids up to par. It's really sad. And also, it's just, why spend time, money, and effort bringing a preschool in right now? I know it's down the line, it's going to happen, but not now. We need to focus on what you have, which is no space, no buildings, not enough staff to take care of preschool. The other thing is about teachers. Moving forward, we can't find the bilingual teachers. You guys want to expand? You need to get the teachers first. That's important. Like I said, I have a 4th grader, 4 teachers, 33 kids. It's been rough. We need to make sure we could get the teachers, especially 4th grade and up, because I know it's hard in the middle school. Because we were supposed to have an 8th grade science teacher that's supposed to be bilingual, supposed to be in Spanish, but we don't. Granted, I love her. She's amazing and she's doing a great job, but we need the teachers, and that should be the number one thing. If you can find the teachers, great. If you have the space, great. You don't have the space. It's not going to happen. I want you to think about that. It's a small property. It's not going to work, even with the new building, which gets me into cleanliness. We have 1 custodian during the day.
Kelly, if you could start to wrap up, please.
Please, we need more custodians during the day to keep up with everything that's going on with the campus, the vandalism, the trash, everything, and the maintenance of the buildings, because the maintenance of the buildings aren't the best. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name's Hannah Kaiser, and I also have a 4th grader at Cali, and I am coming to speak on behalf of the same thing as Kelly. Cali does not have the bandwidth to have more students on campus. My daughter came home the other day with her lunch wasn't eaten, and I asked her why. She said, Mom, I got up to throw something away, and the boy next to me moved my lunchbox to the wet spot. So they're jockeying during rainy days to be eating in dry areas. The TK who are new on campus, they get to eat inside. They get taken care of. Expanding to a preschool is definitely a bad idea. An example of that is the TK, when they expanded to TK, again, all these bilingual teachers that are very hard to find moved down to TK, and we ended up with classes, again, 33 kids in these classes of 4th graders who missed the prime time of learning. And that it's not fair for the students, and it's not fair for the teachers. I feel like bringing TK on campus was at the expense of the existing students. I am all about universal preschool, and even TK, but prior to TK coming to Cali's campus, it was at Maddie Washburn. There's plenty of 4th graders I know who went without the immersion part to Maddie Washburn TK, came over to Cali just fine. So again, there's not enough teachers. Another thing is, during COVID, the reason why these students really suffered is, imagine learning a second language, because they're still young in their immersion career, learning a second language, and then trying to learn second language over Zoom, and then in math, in a language you don't understand, and then you come back, and rightfully so, they had to wear masks, but then you're trying to learn a language and you can't even see their mouth move. So these students are behind, and there's many of them. The only resource they have is Lectura, which is Spanish reading. How about math help? How about all these other things? I'm fortunate. I can afford to put my daughter in tutoring, and I have been doing that. There's a lot of students there whose parents can't afford to put them in tutoring, and there is literally no math help, and these kids are so far behind. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for considering it, and please just moving forward, think about the impact, the overall campus, and the existing students. And we want TK and preschool students to learn, but it just can't be at the expense of the other students. And like Kelly said, it's so hard to find these bilingual teachers that if we don't have the teachers and then everybody wants to shift to TK, then the older classes get shafted. So thank you.
Thank you, Hannah.
So I'm Jane Ellen Kovakovich from Cali. And first, I want to thank you, this board, for all that you do and for our district office. And I want to thank all the teachers who are working very hard to reach the needs of all our students. So why am I here? Some of you know that I've been here before on behalf of trees. And I will keep on working for what we need. And I actually have joined a whole statewide committee to work on greening our schools throughout California. And it's very exciting. There is a new initiative, it's a statewide initiative to increase tree canopy on public school grounds by 2030. I'm not going to take much of your time because I'm coming back to present what this is about. There are grants. There's one that's coming up very soon for about $100,000. I think it's a little fast, and it's from CAL FIRE. But I am going to work on how do we figure out the right trees we need on our campus, where they should be, look at what is coming in terms of building sites, so we don't plant something and take it out. I've watched about 7 trees come out in the last few years. Let's not take them out. Let's put the right ones in. So I'll be back. And it's very exciting. It's the California Schoolyard Forest System program. And I was on a Zoom with 170 people the other day looking at what are good models. The Rialto School District, phenomenal what they're doing. So there's some positive things and things that we can do and have the kids really work on this. I have 10 kids who are in the environmental group ready to help. And teachers will, look at community because that's what you need. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Superintendent Decker, can we have Austin or someone communicate with Jane? I always like grants, Jane, because that means an infusion of resources, additional resources, and we've had a good track record with this district in pursuing those. So I hope that you connect with folks over at the district office who, and through Sharon and the superintendent, the principal, to move forward on that. So, okay, thank
Definitely
you.
bit my ear once already. It was a good conversation.
Anybody else for public comment? Okay, thank you so much. Item 3.3, report from student board member Jackson Caligari. Sir.
Yeah, so today's presentation is about our upcoming 8th grade orientation, which will involve, obviously the high school will kind of be running it, but it'll involve students from all 8th graders from WMS and Cali and all other people that are transferring into the district that want to participate in the orientation. I do have a presentation link for that. Oh, there we go. I am going to go grab a clicker. I'll be right back. Usually I prepare. This time I forgot. It's been a while. Okay, so it is a 3-day orientation. So it'll be the 7th, 8th, and 9th. The first day, actually, we're also at the high school being visited by WUSD. So that's going to be a bit of a balancing act to run that while we're undergoing that visit. But I also think it's going to be good for them to see the connectedness of the district and everything the high school does. So it's pros and cons, but I think it'll be good. In terms of, I already kind of brought up who's involved. It's these are 3 different schools in the district, as well as anybody that will be transferring in. In terms of the groups at the high school that participate, leadership is the big one. There's going to be a lot of leadership students. I think last year, that's basically our entire upper class. We have cheer usually. I think this year, it's hard because they're in their competitive season now. Their sideline just ended, but I do think we'll have them. Dance is for sure going to be there. The cool thing is right when they come in, the bus will pull up right in front of the gym. They'll be welcomed in by these big crowds. And last year it was our first in-person rally back from COVID. It was the first time we had ever been back inside. We'd run everything outside up until this point when we finally had gotten the go-ahead to kind of move back inside. And it was really good to give these soon-to-be freshmen the experience of high school. It's really exciting to be like super rah-rah. But, then they'll go and tour the campus and meet a lot of the elective classes. So the students that aren't necessarily as excited about the games and the rallies and things like that will still find something that they're interested in. I mean, last year we're like, oh, we really need the leadership program to get bigger because it was at 2 classes and that wasn't really working. So we're like, okay, at 8th grade orientation, we're really, really going to push leadership. And we're also going to push video bulletin because that was kind of in danger of shutting down. And, video bulletin's still going. I think there's 2 classes right now. And leadership more than doubled in size. And half of that class now is made up of freshmen. So this is a really good opportunity to kind of introduce people to programs and keep programs going and keep programs alive. So when the 8th graders will come in, they'll have this big rally that I think somebody's going to come in on a scooter. That's very exciting. Usually Dax is involved in some capacity. And then they'll go into and meet their group leaders. So they'll meet an older student or 2 older students that will show them around the campus and introduce them to all the electives. We try and get I will be serving on a panel. So they'll come into the theater. We'll show them a couple videos, try and get them excited about sports and things like that, and then answer a couple of questions. I did that last year. It was very fun. It's nice to kind of see everybody. Clubs have a big role. They'll be all in the library. It's a lot for 8th graders to take in. I mean, I remember doing it a long time ago, but it's also very nice because, if you're not into clubs, you're probably into sports, or if you're not into sports, you're into leadership. There's something for everybody. So we really kind of inundate them with everything that's going to be going on at the high school. It's a really good way to get them excited, which is kind of what I just said. But there's this big board last year that we had where everybody wrote something they were excited about. It's kind of hard for me to see exactly, but wrestling's on there really big. I thought we might like that. Most of them, everybody wrote there's 1 or 2 that say, I don't know, but that's a lot of writing on that board and everybody's excited about something. And a lot of that came from stuff that we'd shown them that day. A lot of people wrote leadership, which they probably didn't really know much about going into the program. A lot of different sports. It's just really nice to see that, people will come in and get really excited about moving on to the next level. So that's a really big program for us and for people that are graduating, and we make them want to come to the high school, which is very big. If anybody's interested in oh yeah, lunch. Well, I mean, lunch is pretty good now. I mean, I think the food is really bumped up a lot. So, I mean, we had that presentation. Yeah, I mean, everybody's got something to be excited about. I just saw golf for the first time. That's nice. But I'm sure if anybody on the board wanted to see it or participate in some capacity, if you reach out to Miss Whiteley, I'm sure she'd be happy to either put you on the panel with me and answer a couple of questions, or just see it. It's very fun to see. It's very kind of gets you excited about the next, who's coming. You feel like the school's going to keep going, keep being good. I haven't done one of these in a long time. I feel like I'm very out of practice, but that's all I really have. I think it's a really exciting event that we have coming up, and it involves a lot of the district.
Thank you, Jackson. Board members, any questions to Jackson about that? I will be reaching out to Ms. Whiteley to come over, and I want to see who can ride the scooter. That sounds awesome. Okay. Yeah, item 3.4, superintendent's report.
I don't have a long report today, but out of respect for those individuals who came, I just want to make one point of clarification. So the preschool grant that we talked about is actually what's serving our TK students. It's not adding more students. We are not funded for all the kids that we have in TK. So the preschool grant is serving those students who are outside of the age range. Just so you're aware. That's all I have for today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item 3.5, staff association reports. Just you. Welcome.
Happy New Year, everybody. Happy Board Appreciation Month. And when I checked in with Laura today, she said she wasn't coming. I do want to say that I have an idea about Kelly and Hannah's concern about attracting and retaining teachers. Yeah, I have an idea. So we'll get to the tables on that soon, hopefully. Looking for the sunshine letter next month. Thank you.
Ms. Green. Okay, item 3.6, Board of Trustees reports. Any trustees that want to share? I have a few things coming up. I will just sort of start, and then maybe we can start over on the right with Stephanie. Just for the public to know, every other year, the superintendent of the county superintendent, so SCO, invites trustees from across the 40 school districts to come to a presentation and a continuing education dinner and professional development evening. We are all going to that, and I thank very much the 5 of us who are up here as the elected officials. Superintendent Decker's coming as well. That's going to be on February 6th, and those are always inspiring. I know you seem to have some familiarity with the guest speaker. I think you had said, you know who she is?
It's a he.
He, okay, there you
Yes,
go, more than
yes.
me.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
he's very well known in education and also a former professor of mine at UC Berkeley. So
cool. So, Stephanie,
So I make this announcement every year. Before I was on the board, I was on the Windsor Educational Foundation. And before that, I was a parent who, wanted to get more involved because of my kids who are at Cali. So, maybe you have a future on the board. We have some people in the audience, maybe future board members out there. But I was on the board of the Windsor Educational Foundation and now always promote their scholarship breakfast, which they do every year. They typically raise around $30,000 to $40,000 every year that gets distributed back to graduating seniors, not only from Windsor High School, but also from Oaks and North Bay Met Academy, because we really see, I think, the We Foundation sees kind of the potential in all of our students. So I just wanted to put that out there that it is on Friday, February 24th at Charlie's, 7 a.m. So bright and early. Mike McGuire is emceeing. And I have saved the dates up here if anyone is interested. I'll pass them out to the board and you can RSVP and attend. It's a good time, good cause.
Paul, anything?
Well, I'd just like to report that I've had a busy couple of weeks. I attended yesterday, actually, I attended the Nueva jury presentations at the high school along with Pete. We're on the same jury and got to experience the presentations that these young people gave they were polished, they were amazing.
Why don't you describe for a second what those actually are?
Okay,
Some people
so-
may be unfamiliar with that.
Okay, so these students have a project and they have to go out and get a mentor and work with this mentor and create a project. 2 of them were musical projects. One, the student was a guitarist and he had mentored with another guitarist and joined a band and all this. And it was really very cool to see them go up and they performed and they had to have a portfolio. And it was almost like they were in a job interview. And I think the skills that they will learn from that process will probably help them in the future if they are interviewing for a job. So we gave them feedback on their presentation. In fact, they were much more polished than I am right now. I mean, they were amazing. No, they really were. And one of them was her presentation was on makeup, and she mentored with this. I can't remember the Scream House, or I can't remember the name. Was that the name of it? Scream House? Yeah, doing the makeup for the actors in the house, and then she got to, at one point she got to be made up too and got to do it and performed, and it was amazing. It was a great opportunity for me to see that education is not for everyone. It's not just, the traditional education where I think that program has a lot of value in honoring the arts, honoring those students who or who gravitate that way. So it opened up my eyes too, because I'm a teacher in the lower grades. I was up through 4th, 5th grade. So I was always thinking about reading and writing and math, and that was the thing. But to see these grown individuals now that are taking on this other path, it was a great experience for me, and yeah, I'll just leave it at that. It was good. Pete was there, holding my hand too, while we did this.
Thank you. And thank you for your passion about that, Paul. Appreciate you sharing. Rich?
I just wanted to mention that the keynote speaker coming up for the trustee recognition dinner, his name is Dr. Pedro Noguera, and his specialty is equity and understanding, the demographic makeup of a school district and how that affects, the students' performance. So I wanted to say that I think it would be worth our time to bring back a report, since we're all attending, of what we learned from that. So that's all.
I just want to know, Malinelli, are we able to ask him what grade he gave you in class?
Go ahead.
I'm just kidding.
Go right ahead.
Hey, it's great to be a Jaguar. Last night, we had, I got to attend 3 of the 4, at least, things that I know happened wonderfully. And it started off the girls wrestling team went against Ukiah at home and crushed them. It was awesome. It's great to see how far the girls program has come, because Ukiah's was pretty much it for a while. And when Coach Dixon went from Ukiah down to here, he really has promoted the girls program a lot and built it up. And they beat Ukiah, I think, the last 3 years in a row. This year was really close. It was going to be really close. It was a really good match. But the girls started it off really, really good. And then the boys junior varsity team, they went out there, and it was really, really cool. And they smashed them. And I just got to tell you, so like 3 weeks ago or 2 or 3 weeks ago, there's a tournament down in Vallejo, and we had so many kids wrestling at different tournaments. We were short coaches, so they asked me if I would take the young guys down to the tournament. So I did, took them down to Vallejo, where I learned that everything's supposed to be far. Right, Jen? And that's when I first met Jen. Her daughter was wrestling, and she was explaining to me about some wrestling things. But anyhow, so I took the kids down there, and I just got to tell you, it's been a few years since I'd coached. The kids are still young, they're learning, but I was so impressed with our Windsor kids. They have so much fight and so much heart. And sometimes I think when we get to where we're in policy level type stuff and we get a little bit away from the kids, we sometimes forget what we're fighting for and who we're fighting for. And so when I see these kids that don't really know a lot, and yet they're given everything they got plus some, and just with all this energy and excitement and motivation stuff, it makes me it's refreshing, because sometimes as adults, we see some of the uglier sides of things in life and things that we have to deal with from time to time. But yet, when I see these kids and their enthusiasm, I was like, man, we're really in great shape, because our youth coming up is really, it's not affecting them. The negative things aren't affecting them. They're really still going for it. So anyhow, it was good to watch those kids wrestle on that Saturday. And then I watched them wrestle against the experienced Ukiah kids at that level. And they did really, really well. They set the tone again, winning. And then our varsity team went out. Now, Ukiah's won the NCS duels the last 4 years in a row. Since I retired, then they had won the last 4 years. But Coach Kevin and his group got them all together, and the varsity boys ended up beating Ukiah's 12 seniors, beat them 51-30. And it was pretty good. I mean, so when I know that there was one particular match, I think I cleared 11 inches of vertical height. For those non-basketball people, that's an incredible feat for someone 62. So anyhow, and who only started out at 5'8". But anyhow, so I'm feeling kind of good about it. I have to text my friend Steve Kramer and just let him know what we kind of laid down for him. And he texts back, thank you, good job. He goes, we just beat Pioneer. So Yeah. So it was, like I said, it was a great day to be a Jaguar. Now, I'm sure that somebody else in our Jaguar Nation did something phenomenal last night that I'm not aware of, but they did it. And so I apologize in advance if I didn't know about it and say something. But you know what? It's exciting to see our dream coming true of having certain things in our extracurricular activities for our kids where we not only provide that opportunity for them, but then they seize it and they grab it and they make the most of it. And as a parent, grandparent, and just somebody who lives in this town, it's really exciting to see us do well, which also now lends towards our overall vision of making sure our enrollment stays high because we've built it and people are going to want to be here. So anyhow, congratulations to everybody. It was a pretty cool thing. And it is great to be here in Windsor.
Great. Thank you, Rich. And kudos to you. I noticed the cause and effect that as you retired 4 years ago, there was a lag, but
There was nothing, I was just,
much like cross country and a few of our other events, I will say in all seriousness, wrestling is one of the programs that does have students and participants of all abilities, and they're out there, and that's good. If you're looking for fun, more wrestling than you can chew, on the 21st is the King of the Mat tournament, the big regional boys tournament at every single room that can put a wrestling mat in it at the high school this Saturday, the 21st. And again, following up on, our good friend Trustee Carnation's efforts, what is called the Goddess of the Vine, our girls wrestling tournament, which is one of the premier girls wrestling tournaments now, is the following week over at our high school on the 28th. Two other things I will add, completely different kind of levels of ability. We are back after 2 years of darkness into the honor band and honor ensembles, which are performing, which had not been performing because of COVID. Both the county and the Northern California events are over at Sonoma State. So on January 28th, Saturday, a week at 7:30, and I know we have participants at both the middle school level and the high school level at 7 p.m. There's a concert there. Those are selected and nominated students from around the entire county. If you ever want to hear what Sousa marches should sound like from a middle school band when 120 people play it, you'll hear that. By audition, and I know we have at least a couple of high school students are going to be in the Northern California, which is the northern half of the state of California. That is going to be at Sonoma State at 4 p.m. on the 4th of February. So much going on. Let's make sure we can get those out and pushed out maybe through Heather, Superintendent Decker, those as well as those two events at the high school. I think that's a lot of announcements. Okay.
A lot of good things happening.
There are a lot of good things happening, and thank you. And we weathered the storms okay, as far as I understand, so that's another good thing. Okay, with that, we'll move to 3.7, approval of the minutes from December 15th. I'd entertain a motion either of any comments and changes or amendments to those, or a motion to move forward to approve them.
I'll move.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor to approve our minutes of December 15th, 2022?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes 5-1-0. 5-0-0-1. Where's he show up? 5-0 plus 1. Okay, good. Do you want me to do the consent items one more time? I can. Okay. So the consent action items, we have some adjustments to them. We have consent action items 4.1 to 4.9. Superintendent Carnation, because he's being honored in one of them, is going to recuse himself and not vote on 4.9.
4.8. 4.8.
Okay. And Superintendent Decker, perhaps you could help me with the withdrawal of the 4.6 item that we had talked about, the one you had raised.
It's just one aspect of item 4.6, the Alliance Redwoods contract. It's
Okay.
not correct, so it needs to come off the agenda. The rest of 4.6 is correct.
Okay. So we will adjust. Do we need to take any action before our next meeting on
On the
February
contract?
16th
No.
on that particular contract
No,
with that
we'll bring-
organization?
We'll bring back the correct contract in
Good.
February.
All right. So with the adjustment then that in 4.6, the Alliance Redwood contract will be removed from consent to be corrected, and Trustee Carnation is going to recuse himself from 4.8. I would make a motion to approve the consent action items with those amendments. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any questions or comments by members of the board on any of the consent action items? I have one, and I have talked to Superintendent Decker about it. With regard to the community donations, thank you for those. I'm glad that we're doing those in writing. There was a point that had come up over the holidays in one of our events, and the folks who were setting up were seeking donations, and I had asked, and I hope it's underway, that we can get some form letter with the district's tax ID number or whatever a donor organization could do. And those are literally almost fillable forms that someone who is supporting a donation, be it, arts, a field trip, a sporting event, et cetera, can have those in hand. And maybe you could talk about that just a second.
Well, I'm going to actually kick it over to Austin. After we talked,
Okay.
I did talk to Austin about some of kind of the history here and what's going on. So Austin, why don't you take it and you can explain kind of how we got here.
Yep. Superintendent Decker let me know that this had come up. And so I got with Jamie Williams. And so we talked about kind of what the current process is. And then she sent me over all the letters that we currently have that are kind of already handwritten. And so we can absolutely go on there and put the federal tax ID number on there. We were looking because there was a prior district policy in the past where putting a federal tax ID number on certain public documents was not allowed. So I wanted to check all my bases to make sure there wasn't a reason for that. And I did, and I couldn't find anything. So
Wonderful.
we'll keep doing it.
Thank you for looking into that.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So with that, we have a motion and a second for the consent action items as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 5+1. Cool. Thank you very much. Our discussion action items. So starting with 5.1, consideration of acceptance of the 2021-2022 audit report presented by Sarah Polafox, director from Christy White. Hello, Sarah.
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening. My name's Sarah Polafox, and I'm a senior director with Christy White, the firm that provides the external audit. So it's my pleasure to be here this evening to present the audit report for Windsor Unified School District for the year ended June 30, 2022. So if anyone would like to follow along, I have a few pages that I will highlight. So first, I wanted to highlight one of the key opinions that we issue in our audit. On page 1 of the audit report, you'll see noted at the top of this opinion is our opinion. In summary, we have issued an unmodified opinion over the financial statements of the district, which is the best opinion that can be issued. Next, I'd like to draw your attention to page 80 of the audit report. This page of the audit report is a very helpful page. It provides a summary of our auditor's results. So it provides all of the opinions that we issue for the district, which is the financial statement opinion, opinion over federal awards, and opinion over state awards. So I'll go over each of those in short form. So as I mentioned, over the financial statements, we issued an unmodified opinion with no material weaknesses nor any significant deficiencies, meaning there were no findings over financial statements. Similarly, with federal awards, we issued an unmodified opinion with no material weaknesses and no significant deficiencies. And to reach our opinion over federal awards, we tested the education stabilization funds. And over state awards, we issued an unmodified opinion with no material weakness nor any significant deficiency. There's a new category this year to differentiate between significant deficiencies and findings that are below significant deficiencies but are required to be reported per the state audit guide. So you'll see that we have noted in accordance with the state audit guide, there is a finding that was noted. So as I mentioned on the subsequent pages, we would note any financial statement findings on page 81, which there were none. And on page 82, if there were any federal award findings, they would be listed on this page, and you'll see that there were no federal award findings. There was, however, one state award finding, as I mentioned, below the threshold of a significant deficiency, but was required to be reported. And this is a continued finding from last year related to the comprehensive school safety plan. And so the district had comprehensive school safety plans in place. However, they were brought to the board after the due date of March 1st. They were brought to the board on March 10th. So just a few days passed. And so not a significant finding, but one that needs to be reported because that deadline was not met. And so we'll look next year to see that that finding has been corrected. And with your February board meetings coming up, the timeline of this of when this needs to be reported is, kind of tricky with board meetings. The board meetings are usually, first or the second week of the month. So just a reminder, get these on your board agenda in February so that you'll meet that deadline. And I will just report out on prior year findings. So as I mentioned, the comprehensive school safety plan finding is a continued finding from last year. And with that, that concludes my presentation of the audit report. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And first, I'd like to extend our thanks to the district staff and many individuals that we work with throughout the audit, from the school site level to the district office. And the district has always been very transparent in the audit process. And I live locally, so I love coming and working at Windsor. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and appreciate the diligence and the drill down regarding that comprehensive school safety plan deadline compliance. I'm pleased, having sat on this board for a while, that we don't have an associated student body petty cash receipt reconciliation bugaboo anymore. Not that that was ever probably more than $100 or even less, but there was always somebody's little ledger somewhere that didn't reconcile. So I'm glad we're on top of that. Any questions from the board or Jackson about the audit? This is good news. And
I have a question for Austin. Do the CBOs, like superintendents, they get together and have a superintendent's kind of conference and meeting, stuff like that? Do the CBOs get together and then kind of compare and say, hey, my audit had no findings and that kind of?
No, the main difference at the CBO ones is we're treated with usually like an iced tea and then like a salad, whereas at the superintendent ones, they have steaks and, real nice bourbons and stuff like that. So, yeah.
That's how you keep the budget.
And then, yeah, over the
need to know
salads,
where their bread is buttered. I think you reversed. I will note, and maybe in all seriousness, Sarah, you could help us. Are there financial training opportunities that are available to trustees that you're aware of? I know we get a sort of a budget update that's done through California School Boards Association and our local SCO. There's other things, but is there anything in your experience that you would urge us to maybe look into that can help us even be more on top of it? We're doing well, and I'm pleased that you can report that to us.
Yeah, I think those are both great resources to go to, and what I see many of the boards that we work with attending. I don't know if the CASBO conference is maybe something that's available to boards as well, but they have wonderful panels that are available to sit on that do kind of drill into some more detailed areas of operation within the district. So I find those to be really helpful.
Say that again, what
The
conference?
CASBO annual conference is a really great conference. A lot of CBOs and business managers and individuals at the district office attend those.
Okay.
So those, I'm sure that board members are welcome to join those conferences as well. So I find that to be really helpful and a really great conference overall.
Thank you.
In all seriousness, Austin, Jeremy, the whole district, thank you. This is really nice. One thing is, as trustees, we have to make a lot of decisions all the time. And it's nice to be able to be confident that the decisions we're making is with good information that we're getting. So that way we can make the best decisions available. And so I appreciate you going through this. My son's an auditor. So it's nice to know that our district is being operated properly, things are being taken care of properly, and then we're actually having the verification that that's all good. So kudos around to everybody. So I think this is the best one we've had since I've been on the board. I think, isn't it?
Without the ASB thing, I'm telling you. It's a home run.
Well, and I do have to say that's really diligent action from the district. And Bonnie, who was in her position, she was phenomenal at, really, doing kind of internal audits and doing that spot checking before we perform the audit. So I really have to say it's a
We have been
testament
the
to the work that
recipients,
she-
other than Ms. Cox, to keep us in line. Bonnie,
Yes.
the business manager, receipt verifier.
Yes.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, maybe sit, Sarah, in case there's a question. Any questions or comments from the public about this? And I'll have you sort of stand by, Sarah, just in case there's something we can't do. Okay. With that, I will bring it back to the board. This is an item that we need to take an action to accept the audit report presented by Christy White, as explained by Ms. Palafax. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Thank you, Rich.
I'll second, and thank you, Sarah, for the report.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. 5+1. Thank you, Sarah. We'll see you again. Okay, item 5.2, as he rises and moves towards the podium, the North Bay Met ASC WASC presentation. You can tell us what those two different acronyms mean. And Forrest Harper, our principal at North Bay Met Big Picture Learning, is here to join us. Happy New Year, Principal Harper.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all. Paul, we haven't met yet. Nice to meet you. Welcome to the board. And everything you were saying about alternative education and working with professionals and internships, I think you're going to really like what we're doing in North Bay Met and Windsor Oaks. All right. So this is my presentation on our WASC report. North Bay Met is going through WASC just like Windsor High School. So first of all, a little bit of background. What is WASC, Western Association of School and Colleges? That is the state's accreditation system. And so that is how California and other states and territories make schools legitimate. So when students are applying to colleges and universities, their transcript actually matters. WASC does a full-on report and visit, and after the end of the visit, they either give you no accreditation, which only happens after like 4 years of just 1 year accreditations, 1 or 2 year, or the best, which is 6 years, which there will be a three-year kind of mid-cycle either report or visit. So this is kind of how the self-study is organized. So you can kind of see right there. I'm going to kind of cover all the different parts, just preview summary, kind of what's been going on. The preface is how the report is written. So that's just kind of how everybody was informed and how it was put together. So chapter 1 is significant findings. So what has happened at the school for the past 3 years? What are the big things that have been going on? We discussed COVID and distance learning and how that's changed things, our competency-based learning and education, our increased enrollment, our A through G pathways, and also our inter-district transfers, as well as changed protocols and procedures. Chapter 2 is how, tell me about your school, tell me about your town. So we talk about the town of Windsor, we talk about the school, and also we talk about our change of demographics, as well as our data for suspension rates, LTI rates, our youth truth survey, and all that other data. Chapter 3 is the kind of meat of the report. That's the most important part, and that's the longest part of the report. So it's organized into 5 different sub-chapters. So A is organization and leadership. We talked about how we revised our mission statement, how we have a school site council, professional development, resource folders, things like that. If you look at the picture, this is how the report is organized. There's the indicators, which is kind of the parameters that WASC sets, and then there's findings, and that is kind of paragraphs that we write about what we found about. And on the right-hand side, it says supporting evidence, and you can see it's blue, so it's a highlighted link, and we linked all of our evidence to our report, and so everything is digital, which is actually really nice and convenient. In chapter, the part for curriculum is B, and so we talked about what is big picture learning. So our individual learning plans, our LTIs, which are our internships, leaving to learns, change in our master's schedule because our demographics changed, where used to be North Bay Met was about 70% juniors, seniors. Now we're about 60% sophomores, freshmen, and so that needed changes in our master's schedule, and also our exhibitions. Instruction, we talked about our competencies and our increased enrollment and everything else we are doing. Assessment, our competency-based assessment, our big picture learning credential, which we were part of the pilot program. So we were one of the first schools in America on the International Big Picture Learning Credential that came out of Australia, and also big picture living, which is a kind of movement started by Big Picture national about having teenagers make good, healthy life choices. And then lastly, E is culture. So everything about our weekly bulletin, our kick-ins, our kick-outs, all the kind of fun stuff we do, like our jams, our journaling, and our restorative practices. After each of those A through E, we have a kind of list of pros and cons of the school. And then in chapter 4 is just a big list of summary of those pros and cons. So we can talk about our excellent student survey results and our parent results. We've scored best in the county in numerous areas. Our curriculum is meaningful and actually relevant, and people are happy at our school. We have a very positive school culture. And so there's a lot of really great things going on at North Bay Med Academy. And just like every school, we have our places where we need to improve. Coming off of COVID, there's a lot of social emotional needs. And so we've seen a major uptick in those areas. Also, when the school was founded a few years ago, up until 2 years ago, we had a grant for professional development, which was really nice. So my first year I benefited of that, and that was the kind of last year of the grant, and that paid for big picture learning coaches that are not free, so we have to pay for them. And that grant ran out, and so we've been kind of putting professional development together for the past 2 years. And so that would be something that would be helpful. Developing our competencies is something we keep working on. And now that we've been around for a while, we have alumni, which is really cool. And so developing an alumni network and, a parent association is something that we've dreamed of. And also now that we wrote our A through G courses and started our A through G courses, we need to reevaluate those and how we can better improve those. And then chapter 5 is, of all the areas of concerns that you have, what are some goals you want to work on? And these are the 3 goals that we came up with. Develop a competency-based assessment framework that everybody understands, implement big picture living to help students' mental, social, emotional development, and increase big picture learning professional development opportunities for staff that will directly impact student achievement. And then last slide is the visit. So we have a visit also coming up in February, at the very end of February, so February 26th to March 1st. So we have a visiting committee of 2 members who are going to come out. One of them is an alt-ed person, which is like, oh, thank you, because we don't have to explain every little thing. And they're going to talk to everybody, all stakeholders. They're going to want to talk to the board. They're going to want to talk to the DO, parents, students, mentors, staff, everybody. And they're going to observe our classes and really look over our school. And right before they leave on Wednesday afternoon, they're going to give an initial finding of what they found out from the school. Then they're going to leave. And then in about 2 to 3 months, we'll get a report in the mail letting know how many years we got for accreditation. And that's my report.
So questions to Principal Harper?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So just out of curiosity, I was wondering if you have already implemented some strategies about social emotional needs, because you mentioned that that was an area of improvement. And I was just genuinely curious, what you had in mind or what was happening.
Yeah, so every single student has an individual learning plan. So it's kind of like an IEP, but it's setting their goals on what projects they want to work on. And our teachers integrated health plans as part of their individual learning plans. And so that is an important part of that. And then in our exhibitions, when students kind of defend their learning, that's their big assessment. They need to report out on their aspect of big picture living. We also started art journaling 2 years ago, which has become pretty popular. And so we actually have a little bit of a wait list for that, and that's been really helpful. And that's run with our counselor and our social emotional counselors that we share with Windsor High School. So we've done numerous things. Also, we always have guest speakers. We're constantly having guest speakers and guest presenters, and we have Alliance Health that comes out and presents as well. Sure.
I just want to say I'm looking forward to visiting the campus in February, Mr. Decker and I, and because I want to know more about this big picture learning. So I'm sure you can't give a 2-minute what is big picture learning. So I look forward to it.
Big picture learning is all about interest-based learning. And so it really asks students, what do you want to learn? What do you want to study? And how can we fit that into the California kind of standards of what you're going to study? And so it's actually really cool because a lot of students that the traditional education doesn't work for them, and they kind of ask themselves, well, what's the point of this? Why am I doing this? And with us, it's, well, if you don't want to do that, don't do that. Let's change your individual learning plan. You can do this project. And so it's very, we don't advertise ourselves as a project-based learning school, but it is very much project-based, and it's all about real-world learning. And that's why we've scored kind of best in the county for a Youth Truth survey of, are you prepared for post-high school? And we were in the 90s when most high schools are in their teens.
Chair Paul, because I worked with Forrest's predecessor and Trustee Heights at the time. Initially, it was an alternative ed kind of concept that we thought about, and we realized very rapidly, as did our families and our students, that there are a number of comprehensive education students who are being successful in their learning otherwise, who said, I would like to shift to that. And I know as we get going through the year, it's one of our strategic visions through Superintendent Decker and the board is, couldn't we go to something beyond the 9 to 12 big picture learning? And they can in fact expand down at the lower grades. So it's very exciting and has grown every year. And as he shifted, as shared, the shift to the lower grades is very exciting because it's building a program now that's got folks coming out of middle school that are stepping into this because they want to, not because they need to or they didn't have another option.
I look forward to learning more.
Great, thank you.
As soon as you know when there would be the meeting with the WASC folks, when they're here end of February, please let us know.
You don't know when they wanted to meet with each individual group, do you?
We have a rough draft schedule, but it's not set in stone. And so that's something I'll work with the district office and the board on.
Good. Yeah, Stephanie.
There was a video that I think that got sent around before winter break that kind of gave an overview of how big picture learning got started in Windsor. And it was just a great kind of summary. I think it might have been pushed out too.
Yes.
So people have gotten a chance to see it.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say, take a moment, because like we get these moments, you come and you give the presentation, but to see like where this was as like an idea, not even just a few years ago. And then now we're looking at the report and you put in all the systems and all the processes and you have the people and all the things. And I just think it's really great that we have these internally driven initiatives that actually become something wonderful. And it's kind of a history of Windsor in having these things. I mean, we look at Cali, which is still here and was the same thing back in its day, like internally driven new way of teaching. So just want to take a moment to think about that and recognize that and appreciate you for being part of this and everyone who was a part of it. And then also compliment your PowerPoint presentation skills and like just high level and not reading the slides, like very good.
Thank you. Bless you.
One of the best.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And I'll share. I think a reason that Stephanie maybe we had some time in closed session and talking about essentially meeting students where they are and the fact that we can tailor when we can. And I think I've seen now with big picture how that has exercised attraction rather than promotion for students and their families to come to it. And even some of the things that Rich was so enthusiastically talking about in our other extracurriculars are things to find that thing or two that may give fire and passion for a child to want to come to school. And they can do all the other stuff that may not be their fire and passion, but they'll feel welcome and included and listened to. And again, I'm interested in the senior exit survey data, because I think that Youth Truth survey to say, and you blow the charts off compared to any other schools. And I've had other trustees in other districts. What is this program? How is that number right? How can you have 90% of your students like anything? But yeah, thank you. And to celebrate that, we look forward to the continued success. And thank you, Richard.
I also wanted to make a comment about the fact that, we don't often use the word equity on this board of trustees, but that's exactly what you're doing. And I think that, when Bill says that we're meeting students where they are, that's really what equity is. So I really feel that, we could connect the dots a little bit more around equity. But I'm always super impressed, when you present for this board and just with everything that you're doing. And the fact that students are leading the way in their own education is always really impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, I remember some years ago, one of our best girl wrestlers that have come through the town. No, she started as a freshman, and I was like, "What do you mean you're not?" I thought she was at the high school, and she's like, "No, I'm at North Bay Met." I'm like, "You're what?" And I just kind of didn't get it. And from that day, every time I've heard, seen, learned, been over there to watch any kids interacted with, it's always been better and better and better. And it's and when I talk to other people outside of the area, and they're going, I a buddy of mine from down Pleasant Hill. He goes, "Hey, what's that North Bay Met thing you guys going up there?" I said, "Oh, I can't tell you." He goes, "Why?" I said, "Because then you'll try to copy it, and then the next thing you know, you'll try to steal our people." And so anyhow, it's so in Concord, Pleasant Hill, people are hearing about it, an hour away drive-wise, right? And so anyhow, I'm just I'm very proud of our district and proud of everybody and the efforts that everybody's put in, and the foresight or the luck, however you want to call it, of how it first came about, and how people that promoted it and got it here going. I mean, it's just another one of those things, kind of like the build program. We're a very innovative district. We're not afraid of things, trying and looking at things that are good, better, best. So anyhow, Forrest, I mean, let everybody know, man, we're continually impressed. And again, as Bill just said, 90% in anything is crazy. And so when the kids, they're our best advertisement of how well we're doing. So pass that on to all the folks and the kids too. I mean, because they're the ones that are driving the successes. So anyhow, y'all are doing a great job.
Thank you. And Forrest, if you wouldn't mind stepping aside in case, is there any comments or questions from the public on this item? The WASC, this is a report discussion item. There is not any action we need to take. We're going to see you again, meet them, and get the accreditation number of years here in the next few months. Okay, seeing that, the board thanks you, Forrest, and keep up the good work. Look forward to hearing from you, and let us know through the DO and our scheduler, Jen, when we have to be there. Super. Okay, item 5.3, a request to recognize variable term waiver for a TK teacher at Cali. This item will be presented by Pete Sullivan, Director of Human Resources. Sir.
Good evening. Yeah, I bring a request to just recognize the variable term waiver for Diana Avila Anguiano. She has been a teacher with us since the beginning of the year, so you might be asking, why are we doing a waiver at this point? It seems odd, and it is. We actually, if we could go back to the, I believe, September board meeting, we actually put in for a PIP for her. So that didn't work out because she was not able to enter the January or the spring cohort for the intern program at North Coast School of Education. So we need to hold over, although she's highly qualified. She has a degree in early childhood development and a preschool director's permit. She's been great in the classroom. We just need to make this whole. So we're asking that you recognize our request for a variable term waiver for Deanna.
Okay, this is an action item that we will have to vote on before we go out to the public. Any questions from the board on this item? No? Okay, any public comment on this item for the variable term waiver? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion that to approve the request for the variable term waiver as described.
I'll move to approve the request.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Pauls. Stephanie and Paul, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and that passes 5+1. Good work, +1. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Number 5.4, the back by popular demand from the December show, the Ahmad's been waiting for the multi-tiered systems of support report from Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Sharon Ferrer. Welcome back, and thank you for your patience
Absolutely.
to roll this
The
into
whole
an.
holiday break.
Yeah.
I was just waiting, just couldn't wait to give this report. I don't promise to be as eloquent as Forrest. That was pretty impressive, I must say. I agree with you, Stephanie. I was like, wow.
Okay, so I read a little bit more than he does, but this is my report on the multi-tiered system of support that this is work that we've been doing for the past 2 years in the district administration and now going to site administration in order to really address the academic, social, emotional, and behavioral strengths and areas of concern for all of our students. So you can see there that there's a definition, a very academic definition of what MTSS is. And below is the specific definition that our team that has been working on this developed I think in November, or it might have actually been early December. And that team is composed of district office staff, admin from every site, and then a couple of non-admin, but that are at coordinator level positions. So our Windsor Unified School District specific definition is that MTSS is a framework that uses a collaborative, data-informed problem-solving process to ensure continuous improvement by aligning multiple tiers of instruction, intervention, and/or acceleration to meet the needs of all students. MTSS is grounded in high-quality, standards-based instruction that integrates academic, social, emotional, and behavioral learning. And so Malinali had made a comment regarding meeting students' needs where they are. And that really is the focus of MTSS, developing that multi-tiered system of support across all levels in academic, behavioral, and social emotional competencies. So the framework is to provide high quality integrated academic and behavioral instruction and intervention to match student need. Huge component of it is monitoring student progress, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And allocating district resources and school resources in response to the specific needs of the students at each site. This is a graphic representation that I stole from someone. So not everything on there is specific to our district, but I like the visual because you can see in the middle, tier 1, that's universal instruction, really. That's every student should be getting the biggest chunk right there. And then if you go to the right, those are students that need more challenges. And if you go to the left, those are students who struggle in some way and need more interventions. So you can see that the tiers are not just one way. So the work that we've been doing for the past 2 years really falls below that line right there for MTSS. We have been working with our leadership staff to build capacity and restructure some of our infrastructure to be able to attack some of these needs in different ways. We are communicating and collaborating with one another and are starting the next phase of training our site leadership teams in all of this, which is, it's a lot. And also really diving deeper into data. And as far as the data is concerned, I do have to say as a human who actually likes data, I was a math and science teacher, so I love data. This actual approach to tiered services for me has been the missing link. I finally feel like our district has a way to move forward, and we're actually making tremendous strides in moving forward to be able to look at the data and respond to it in a way that's effective. And I'll talk about a little bit more about that process later. So above the line is where we're going. We're going to a model of a continuum of instruction and services. Those are the different tiers. That's what I showed you before in that little kind of rhombus shape. And really solving or trying to approach all of our problems by looking at our data. This graphic is just to show you where we're at. So we're in the implementation phase right now, or we're starting it. We've reached consensus about a lot of different aspects of where we want to go, what our multi-tiered system, what our continuum of services is going to look like in the realm of academics, behavior, and mental health. And we're now starting to build the infrastructure for it, change around schedules, bell schedules or course offerings or FTE allocations at certain sites in order to put into practice what we are discovering through looking at our data and working together. So next year's really going to be dedicated to implementing MTSS with fidelity. The graphic on the left, I like that just because it shows that this is not just an academic process. We're looking at the whole child. We're taking into consideration mental health as well as behavior. And both of those aspects are extremely prevalent right now, post-COVID. So we are focusing a lot of attention on them, and I think we'll be seeing some positive results in our data next year. So this was next steps and development. It's just sort of a summary of what we have been doing. Our principals still need to be trained on 2 new data management systems that we have purchased. One is called Schoolzilla, and the other one is Aries Analytics. And it's really, I'm so excited about them because they're going to help so much. They're going to help our counselors. They're going to help our teachers. It's going to help district office and principals to really hone our data and pull out and disaggregate what we need to focus on without taking 17 million hours to do so. So I'm really, really excited about it. We are training principals. We have been training principals all year, and starting January 24th, we will be training We'll be training our site leadership teams on the framework, the MTSS framework, and how to move forward with that. We are implementing a universal screener for the first time district-wide. That has been amazing. Just having that data at our fingertips and being able to disaggregate it and being able to compare it and see already that there's student growth from the beginning of the year to now is really exciting. So that's been amazing. Okay, that's probably all I have to say about that. Also linking our goals with, linking all of our goals together, our LCAP goals, our SIPSA goals, our student learning outcome goals in via one process is a focus of this year as well. So this next year will be year 1 for the sites. And typically, we're working with consultants. Typically, year 1 is tier 1, which means we're going to focus on that tier 1 that provides overall support to all students, both, academically, behaviorally, and mental health. So we're really going to focus on tier 1. You have to have a strong foundation in order to then supplement it for those that need more challenges or to supplement for the students that need more support. And this is just a reflection from my last report, which was all the data. And we knew from the data that we saw from SBAC, from the CASP, that we need to improve our systems. We know that we have amazing teachers. And we know that we've been through a couple of very, very challenging years and and we currently have challenges that we've never had before. So this is a summary of what we've already started, which I have gone over all of it, except for some of the specific supports that we have in place this year. The Read 180 program, and the System 44 program, which is a multi-language learner reading support program. And that's at Brooks, Maddie, Windsor Middle School, and Windsor High School to help address literacy development. We are piloting a new math curriculum at Windsor Middle School and Windsor High School called Big Ideas, and that came from the teachers. That was teacher initiated, and we're going to be doing about a 1.5-year pilot for that one. And we've purchased a math support program called Freckle for Brooks and Windsor Middle School, which ties directly to Renaissance, which is the universal screener that we use. So interested to see the data we get back from that as well. And I already talked about the new data systems that we bought. So that's it.
Can I just say one thing, Sharon? What we're attempting to do is to meet the needs of every single student, all 4,631, specific to their need. I mean, that's a massive undertaking, right? Yeah. And that's what we're trying to get in place. So we spent 2 years before we've ever even touched the sites, trying to get some of the infrastructure in place so that we can start to have these conversations at the site level. Because as Sharon kind of referenced, we have great teachers, but when a student's struggling, we haven't always had a place for them or resources for them. So our teachers do the best they can, but our job is to make sure we provide some sort of system or structure where a teacher can say, this kid has this struggle, and I'm going to either refer them to this or use this strategy that I've been given. So this is a massive undertaking, but it is the work. You used the word equity, Malamali. This is equity at its finest, if you will. It's every kid getting what they need, and not just academically. It's behaviorally, it's socially, emotional, all of it. Their needs met. So that's the hope that we're trying to put in place.
Good. What questions or comments does the board have? Paul, you're on it. You're jumping on your mic there.
Well, no, I was wondering if you have given any thought to a new math program from kindergarten through 5th grade. The current program, and that's not just my opinion, it's lacking in a lot of areas. Has there been any talk about piloting a different program?
Not at this point, there hasn't been. But again, I'm brand new this year, so there's a lot I'm still learning. But I've actually heard more concerns about the language arts program in K-5 than the math program.
Okay.
And I will share with you, Paul, not too many years ago. I mean, it's been a while since we consolidated Windsor Creek. When we had a K-1 school and a 2-3 school and a 4-5 school, when I first came on the board, we had 3 different math programs. And I'm not sure which of those 3 was sort of integrated again again, this is not related to Cali per se, but I think always good to subject it to scrutiny. So I appreciate your
They're
question.
using bridges, and it's not a good program.
Well, we
my
have
opinion.
a math TOSA, a teacher on special assignment at Brooks. We had one at Maddie at the beginning of the year, but she resigned, unfortunately. So the math TOSA at Brooks and the math TOSA at the middle school have been working with Maddie teachers intermittently to help them really dive deeper into Bridges, and pull out power standards and sort of repace and their lessons around the power standards. So there has been work that we're doing to try and support the teachers and boost math scores for the students. But I do think we have a long way to go.
Well, that's sort of why I was going there, because the math scores have been low. And I like the approach, though, of taking the standards and having that be the focus rather than the program.
Yes.
And it sounds like that's what the TOSAs are trying to do. And if they're successful, then the math scores should improve. I don't know much about Freckle as a support program, but I think it's a good idea to have that in place. Now, one of the things I was thinking about too while you were going through your presentation is how this is going to look like, what's this going to look like in the classroom? Because that's the teacher background that I have. And one of the things that popped in my head is that if you're trying to meet the needs of all these kids at where they are, there has to be a fundamental shift in how we're delivering instruction and what's the plan for that? What's the plan for changing how we're teaching?
Well, see, the beauty about this MTSS framework is part of it has a built-in 4-step problem-solving approach that's very, very structured. And as we train our site leadership teams to use that approach, I don't want to say force, but it really allows each educator to look at the data, hypothesize why they think the data is the way it is, and then actually investigate and validate or invalidate their hypothesis so that later they can change what needs to be changed. So oftentimes we make a judgment call based on data because we think we know what the problem is when really it's just a guess and we never validate it. So we change something and our scores don't get any better. So we change something else and our scores don't get any better. So we're not finding the root cause. So via this 4-step problem solving approach, the hope and the purpose is to find the root cause. And it can be instruction, it could be curriculum, it could be student engagement, it could be the learner, but it's very, very, very rarely the learner. So that's why I was saying it's the missing link for me, at least. I really think this is what we need as a district to be able to appropriately identify the root cause and actually make the changes that will result in increased student achievement.
Yeah, I guess that somewhat answers my question, but I'm still thinking about the teacher in the classroom. Now they have this data, okay, but now I have to teach these kids at this level, these other kids at this level. What does that look like? Are teachers going to be trained in how maybe bringing back centers, especially in the K through 2, well, probably K through 4 even, you can run centers where you can have focused times for those kids that need the extra help and have meaningful activities for those that are on tier 1 kids maybe, but those tier kids tier 2 and 3, they're going to need some support. So
Correct.
They're going to have to change how they're, that's what I know I get stuck because it's a teacher in me.
Right, no.
Is how am I going to do that?
And I don't
as a
think I can
teacher?
answer that question for every
Fair
single
enough.
grade level. It's going to depend on the needs of those students.
Can I interject too? That's the part we do with teachers, right? So what we're focused on is setting up the systems and the processes, but we're not going to tell teachers, you have to use that strategy to meet that need. So that's kind of the idea where we move in and we develop those things with
I
teachers.
can understand that, but if teachers are unwilling to change how they're teaching, and I
Sure.
know I've been a teacher, and I still want to teach whole class when that's
Sure.
probably the least effective way to reach all the kids, then that's on me as a teacher then, I guess. But there has to be some guidance into ideas or brainstorming, whether it's at leadership or wherever that is on that site or grade level.
Sure.
And how you're going to meet those needs.
You bring up all great points, Paul.
And part of that problem solving process is exactly doing that, I shouldn't say is, but it could be going into a classroom with your hypothesis saying, okay, I think it's because we're not doing centers, or I think it's because we have too much whole group instruction. And so, teams from the MTSS team will go into classrooms and take data, and then they can present that data to the teachers to say, look, it's not that we think that this is the problem, this is the problem, or this isn't. So now that we know what the problem is, we have to change what we're doing.
No, I love the data approach because I used to use that. I used Renaissance in my teaching, and I used it to drive what I was going to teach those children. So for me personally, I love the approach of using the data to drive your instruction.
Yep.
Rich has waved his hand and Stephanie waved her hand.
I have a
saw it,
comment
and
as well,
and
too.
you have one and you will go third, but I'm going to go first. So Paul, you have a unique position being on the LCAP, right? To jump in. Also, and I think you probably know this, you do not have to wait until we're here getting it as a group to take a deeper dive. Clearly, your professional experience and expertise, I would encourage you and Sharon to start to have this conversation, to have a deeper dive, since you are our teacher representative coming from the K-12 side now. So both of those, I think, are two things that you can be involved and aware and assist us, I think, as we're going along. What I'm going to do is sort of start over here. We'll go Stephanie, then Rich had waved, and then Mally.
So I was wondering, I really appreciated your comments, Paul, and then I'm interested to hear what you all have to say as well. But I wanted to say thank you for putting this together. I actually think this is a really good overview and very succinct and really captures what the program is supposed to look like or what this process is supposed to look like. So thank you for that. I'm wondering, so as you're describing it, it kind of sounds like it's going to change as we go along. Like it's not like this is the same thing every year. It's going to start out being one way and then we're going to learn things and then our whole system will change and then there will be more kind of iterative going on, but maybe the biggest changes will happen kind of up front is kind of what it's sounding like.
You know, it's interesting. So our consultant talked a lot about this. So schedules we think of as static, right? I mean, that's the schedule, and then we fit everything into it. And really what she says is that's the worst way to think, right? Because your schedule should be built around the needs of students. So I think you nailed it.
Okay.
Is that it is going to change. It's going to change based on the needs of our students.
Yeah. Well, it kind of like reminded me of like AI because everyone's talking about like it's going to learn, but like, you know, this is human intelligence, right? It also like we get better over time.
I do think there's going to be an adjustment period and a growth period.
Mhm.
And I can definitely say going through the training, there's that, you know, whenever you're learning something very new and very different, there's a graph that shows that you're kind of in chaos for a while
Mhm.
and then you plateau when it all connects. And that took about 1.5 years for me. And I actually remember the day this year when I was like, oh, I get it all. Now I get it. It totally makes sense. So it is a different way of processing information. But I am super excited about it to be able to do it with our teachers because I really truly feel like this is going to make a difference.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen slowly over time. It's not going to, you know, be a magic bullet that happens, you know, we start it and 3 weeks later, you know, oh, we've changed everything.
Right. So initially I was going to ask you like, what does this look like for the next few years? But it sounds like it's going to kind of change every year a little bit.
Right. So for the rest of this year, for this semester, January until May, we will be training the site leadership teams in the MTSS framework. And unfortunately, it would have looked different had we not been coming out of COVID and had no subs. So since we have very little subs, we are having to have smaller teams at each site. But we still have teams at each site, and they will be going through 4 days of intensive instruction on the MTSS framework. And then next year, through the leadership team meetings on site and collaboration with the district office, they'll start implementing, implementing the 4-step problem-solving approach to be able to respond to the data and also change the tiers that are offered, either amplify them or reduce them or change them. So it's hard to say this is what it's going to look like other than we're having significant training this year and then implementation of the actual framework next year.
And then I have one more question. Should I hold it and let everyone else go or just ask that one? Okay. So we had some public comment earlier, kind of where there was an expression of a little bit of like, our kids are behind. We need to do something about it. I think parents are just a little stressed. What do we do? What is the district planning to do to let parents in on this or notify them of this, get their input, get their feedback, maybe not even, or just push out information to them so that they know that this is happening and that we do what the approach is? Because it sounds like it's more like a let's do a study and then act, which is probably very wise, rather than just trying to throw things at issues that we don't even really know what the issues are and try to fix it. So what's our plan for involving our families?
Well, right now, I mean, part of making or having a successful MTSS program is involving all stakeholders. So, we started with district office and then site admin, and now we're going to leadership teams at each site, and then we will eventually go to parents, but it has to be a process. So we haven't talked about.
Or even just like a communication saying, hey, we wanted to let you know that we're working on this as a district.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that would be great.
Okay.
So I just want to say I really appreciate everyone's comments so far in this discussion. And I also really sincerely appreciate all of the hard work that has gone in the 2 years of, putting all this together. And then finally, I also appreciate the fact that this is data-driven, right? But however, I am a bit concerned that this seems to focus on, or it's very student-centered, with the focus being on the student and their social emotional needs. So it's putting the lens on the student. And I really believe that this could benefit from also teachers having more resources at their disposal, as well as an analysis of, their teaching strategies and processes, just because I know that with this MTSS, there has been a lot of discussion and research put together about how teachers can utilize an anti-racist lens in their classroom and to have curriculum that's more inclusive and also gender inclusive. So I believe that the lens also needs to be put on teachers as far as what strategies are they using, with the understanding to get them access to resources that they can utilize. Because I think that, one of the most difficult aspects of this is, if I'm a teacher and I have certain biases, it will be difficult for me to assess my own biases, right? So I think that the answer to that is, not from the point of critique of the teachers, but more from the point of, how can we give you access to resources so that you can, have, how should I say, more access to a learning process of how to improve your curriculum, how to improve your syllabus, so that it is more inclusive of all of our students. And I think that this is something that is really missing, from this MTSS, system. We really need that. We need our teachers to be able to get up to, a par with the times of, just being more inclusive of all students and all genders and all, races and cultures.
Thanks. Okay, couple issues. Thank you so far. So I apologize if I'm not very articulate in this, but one of the things, I'm really proud of Windsor and everything we do, except for one spot, and that's been our math. Has been from the very beginning, since forever and a day. And every time I ask people about it, and I've asked different administrators, this is over like a 15 or 20-year period, I hear, well, we're going to try this new thing and we're going to do this. And so a couple of things. One is, I'm going to, when Paul started running for the school board, we met, we had breakfast, and one of the things that I talked to him about was the math, and I was concerned about it. And he said, hey, this is the area that this is my thing, right? And I was like excited and happy, because it's not my thing. I have a hope, aspirations for kids, but I'm not a teacher. I don't know how to make it happen. So my comment is, all I know is that I struggled with algebra in high school. I've talked about this a little bit, but K through 8, I had my math down, and I was curious. And so I actually reached it. We had one of my class reunions. And so we got all our emails and stuff. And I sent out an email to all my old classmates. And I asked them, because we were a little town. So we started school in kindergarten and we went all the way through. We picked up a few, lost a few along the way, but we had them all. And I asked everybody, I said, hey, how did you guys learn? How did you do in math, learning? Because my remembrance was that we all smoked math just crazy, right? And so I got a hold of everybody. Everybody said, no, we did great in math, to a T. Now this is like, I think 180 kids. And I asked them, well, what grade did you get? And nobody got less than a B. So, which isn't indicative of anything other than, I don't have anything to quantify it. I feel as though the way that we learned math as a kid, I'm 62. This was what, 50 years ago. We knew more as a 10-year-old, 12-year-old kid. We had the mastery of math way, way better than 10, 12-year-old kids do now. So my question is, why aren't we just simply teaching our kids today the way we learned 50 gosh dang years ago, which worked? I'm not a good teacher. I don't understand that, but I'm really good at business math. I'm really good at those things. And all the people in my class, none of us had the issues that we hear that kids are having today. So I'm going to kind of be looking at Paul, because you're the person who first told me that you know how to fix this. I don't know how to fix it, but I am going to kind of say, hey, why aren't we teaching math the way I learned it? Because at least for where I grew up, everybody got it. We can do our multiplication tables in our head. We can divide in our head. We don't need to ask Siri what something is. Now, I have to ask Siri for a whole lot of things like calendars now and phone numbers. But nonetheless, the point is the way I learned and the rest of my classmates, our cohorts learned, we all got it. So when I hear people talk, oh, we're going to teach it in cylinders now. We're doing all these different things. Change for change's sake, just because the old people did it the old way, doesn't mean that we shouldn't maybe do that. So I guess my question is, has anybody looked at going back in the history book of life and just going, how did these old fossils learn it? And how is it they had it down so well and our kids don't? So that's kind of a question that I want to throw out to all of us in our district and to Paul, because I don't have the answer for any of this stuff. I don't want to go over it tonight, but I just kind of want to lay a marker and say that maybe we need to go back in time and we need to look at how we used to learn things. I'm sure I can dig up an old math book or two. But Paul, I'm going to be leaning on you to help us continue to kind of push now, because the last comment is this: time is of the essence. We don't have a lot of time. Now we get, as professions, have time to develop ourselves. Our little kids, they don't have time. They got to learn this here in this little bitty time, and then they're supposed to progress to something else. So I feel an urgency. Now, I'll be honest with you. I have a grandson who's a kindergartner. I have one that's in 4th grade. I have a little 2-year-old. He's smart as a whip. And he is coming up too. So I'm motivated just like every other parent or grandparent in our town. So Paul, every time I see you, I'm going to ask you, how's our math improvement coming along? Because I'm deeming you the dean of math on our board.
Well, thank you for that additional job duty.
Hey, I'm here to help.
I'm not an expert, but I do know what I know. And I had to become somewhat of an expert. During COVID, I had to tutor a group of 4th grade students and a group of 5th grade students. What I discovered from that experience was we're working too hard in trying to teach these kids. Go back to the standards. Go back and pull out, what does this child need to progress to the next grade level? Now, it's not going back to how we learned it, but it's going back to what the state or whoever has determined what they need for that next grade level. When you do that, when you have that laser focus, you can do it in a very short amount of time. And I want to tell you, we only met with these 4th grade and 5th grade students once a week on Zoom. The rest of the time, they had 4 days of activities to do that were related to what we taught. And within 4 months, we taught them all that they needed for the entire year. So I'm not saying that we need to redo how we're doing things, but I'm talking about laser focus on those standards. And I know you're doing that. I know you've mentioned that in your presentation, but I think we're working way too hard. And I think a lot, and hopefully your TOSAs are doing this as well. They're pulling out, like you said, what they really need to do, focus on those lessons, because what has happened along the way is we've gotten too fuzzy with our math in kindergarten through 6th grade, I want to say, where a lot of this stuff, and I'm going to use this term too, it goes back to the brain development, that these children are not ready for abstract thinking until they're like 12 or 13 years old. And it's a fact. So when you're telling a kid 4 or 5 different ways how to add numbers together instead of lining them up as the standard algorithm, some kids may get it. The ways they're teaching adding and subtracting, it drives me crazy. Oh, we count up on the number line, then we go back and all this stuff. I mean, some kids will get it, but the majority will not. When I taught 4th grade, we had 4 ways to teach them how to do 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication. 4 different ways, right? The standard algorithm being the last way. Well, as a grade level, we decided this is ridiculous. We can't do this. We're going to teach them one way, and then those who are advanced, then we'll go back and we'll teach them, again, differentiating how we're teaching. But we have to get back to basics. No matter what this comes up with as far as math is concerned, it's not that difficult. Kindergarten through 6th grade, because that's where I have more expertise or more knowledge.
I just want to make a comment too about this. I feel that we are getting a little bit removed from our conversation about equity, and it's so important because, for example, if you have a child, somebody addressed it earlier, but if you have a child who, has parents that have a college education or that have, the financial resources to be able to get access to tutoring after school, clearly that student is going to have an advantage over other students, who have parents that did not finish high school, that do not have access to financial resources for extra tutoring. So I feel like we need to acknowledge that. We need to acknowledge that all of our students are not at the same level and that some of them need more support, than others, but also to understand that teachers, with the pandemic could also be overwhelmed and that they also need access to resources, that will help them to have strategies for their classroom to address, these different needs, right? So I feel like that kind of conversation really needs to center, equity once again, because not all students, will have access to the same types of resources. And that's really, really important as part of this conversation.
No, I appreciate that, but I did not mean to suggest that it's just because those kids had this tutoring that they're, my point was that we need to keep it simple for all the kids. It's not just.
And if I might, as the final trustee speaker on this, I'm going to pull it out because we are now into implementation year 2. This is not an action item,
That's
right?
true.
We
You're
are
absolutely
in
right.
report
You're
discussion.
absolutely right.
So I think there's great interest in this. What I'd be interested when it comes back is tell us what you need. What is our investment that we need to make that we're not doing? I wrote a couple of notes where you were talking. I loved that you said it is in one of your, in our customized definition, that it was instruction, intervention, and acceleration. I like that we have the rising tide rising all the boats. Those who can, we can find a way to help them continue to grow if they're able to. While understandably we invest a larger portion of our resources into students to bring them up, right? And I think that's part of our philosophy. It's the equity piece of it. We do that, but also to recognize that this is a dynamic program. We are starting something. So what I'd be interested when you come back and give us an update, hopefully again before the end of the year, we need to know what do we need to be doing to be implementing this. Please take it on. I think you're point person now on all things more than just math. So you got social emotional learning and all the other pieces of this.
Oh, you don't want to get me started on that.
I do, actually.
I have ideas on that as well.
But aligning and integrating amongst our various school sites as this continuum goes through, because we do not have every kid going to a K-8 school where they're in the same community the whole time. And I'd be interested also about, we heard, and Stephanie mentioned a little bit, there was comments from the 2 speakers in public comment, almost that there's a perception that there's a zero-sum game, that if we're doing an initiative that is TK, something at Cali, and there is a shortfall in their experience, and they were speaking as parents of 4th graders, that there must be a direct cause and effect. I don't know if there is or not, but I think it's an important piece for us to educate folks. As Stephanie was saying, we are hearing you. We are looking at this holistically. It's not just a new 4-letter acronym for us to go add. It does transition and align and integrate things in a deliberate way. So I absolutely concur with Mally, and sort of Paul was talking about it too on, the teacher piece of it, right? We're focusing on the product, if you will. That is the individual student learning. It's amazing that today's demographic population of 4,613 kids or whatever it was. But, the delivery model of that and the direct interaction at least starts during the day with their teachers and the other, support professionals that are in and around the school. So I look forward to the adjustment and the implementation phase, but do please come back to us and tell us, we've raised a number of questions, maybe tailor the presentation about, responding to some of those, but also this is a resource investment. And if we need to be resource investing both for, if, and I'll just say it, I remember when we got an arts grant a number of years ago, one of the things that we paid full training rate to teachers to work in the summertime, as opposed to just their per diem raters, whatever the lower rate was. If that, to get it going when there's the time to do that, that's the kind of thing I'm thinking about, right? That's us putting our money where our mouth is to say, we think this is important. We're supporting the initiative on a strategic level, and this has been part of what Jeremy's been telling the board for years. We want to do this, right? We're just seeing it now, but we've been talking about it, sub rosa for 2 years to even figure out, is this something that we had the capacity to try and the adventure to go on? So tell us what we need to do for some of these questions and implementation and details, but also from the level that we get at, from policy and resources, are we having to shift resources? Do we need to know from the LCAP and budgets, here's the butcher's bill for this, and it's money very well spent, but I think help us understand that. It may be integrated. I know it's part of some budgets that we have. We have very flexible, creative CBO, but I think at our level, we got down in the weeds, I think, because there's some passion and we can identify with this and the need, but also taking a step back. Is this, and before we go out to our one member of the public who's here, is this another, book on a shelf that's going to be a burden on the back of our classroom classified and certificated employees? Or is it something that they'll say, oh, we can understand it and we feel supported, and the professional development was behind that. So I'm excited. We'll come back to the board after any public comment, but public, you can come up in multiple phases if you'd like, or if there's, we don't gotta,
Do you have a 10-foot pole? I'm not touching this one.
Okay, interest and curiosity and implementation. I'll translate that. Okay, so with that, any other final comments? I mean, we touched a lot of things. Again, this is not on for action or approval. It just was coming in. Again, this was carried over from December. We would have had all of the holidays to mull on this had you done it. Is there anything, even though it's not on for action, is there anything you anticipate is going to come to us? Let's go to you and then I'll sort of close with that. Yes.
Well, you've gotten a lot of information from the board, so that's good. This is something that I know we've just had conversations about, that I think, especially math, and I think part of it, and I wanted to just flag this because I think this is part of it, is grading and how that relates to all of this, because I think there are some grading woes that have come out of the COVID period. One of them being that now there are the grades are tied to maybe your Google Classroom a little bit, and things are automatically uploading, and parents are getting weekly updates that might not be totally accurate, or they might not be proportional to, maybe they are totally perfect, but I think that grading has to be a component of this, right? Like, how are we recognizing proficiency? Is that something we need to think about? I know it's been an issue with math that we've gotten presentations on, like how many Fs and Ds are being awarded. So I don't have a specific recommendation except, and I know that that's part of the conversation, just to flag it from the board side. I know we've had conversations and really expressed some concern over grading and its accuracy and its importance.
Bill, okay. Melanie, to your point, I think this is kind of important. I want to finish this. We talk about the math and all the things, but we really haven't articulated the why. And the why is this. We talk about the different kids. I was that poor kid that I couldn't afford. My parents couldn't. My dad was an educator. Couldn't afford tutors and whatever. My dad, when he came home from being at board meetings late at night, that's when we could help with the homework. But to this point, why is math important? Why is it important to me? Because every one of our kids growing up is going to get a car loan, and they're going to try and buy a house, and they're going to try and do all these different things. If they don't understand even the better part of the basic parts of math, they're going to get hosed on interest rates. They don't know how to understand it or figure it out. I see it every day. Adults that do not understand how to figure out basic interest rates, down payments, all these different things, accelerated loan, all these things that quite frankly, if you had an 8th grade math equivalency capacity, you can understand all those things. And yet so many people screw up on all these financial things that make a huge difference in their life. And so for me, that's the why, because I see so many people make avoidable mistakes because they don't have certain skills that they missed somewhere growing up. It bothers me because it's such an avoidable mistake. And I see a lot of people get taken advantage of because they don't have certain basic math skills. So that's why this is important. I have friends, I have employees that have made simple math mistakes, and then we've gone over the stuff with them, I've to help them out and stuff. And then they see where the thing is, and I'm thinking like, but if we just had a little bit better understanding of math, not algebra, pre-algebra stuff. So that's why, for me, that's why this is important, because you talk about equity and equality and all these different things. If you don't understand certain levels of math, your life is always going to have a struggle. We have struggles anyway, compounding it with not having the ability to make certain wise decisions based on basic information on that requires a little bit of math so people can compare things. I just feel like we're just ripping our kids off by not doing that. So to you guys, that's why, that's a part of why this is important to me, that we graduate seniors with a level of math that they can not go to any more school, and yet they can take care of any of their financial needs, understanding what their financial needs are to the rest of their life. So anyhow, that's a lot of my why. And
Okay. He has waited patiently down at the end of the dais, and he gave me the sign. Jackson.
Sure, I can talk a little bit about math. I mean, more specifically at the high school, but just to start in terms of like math being taught differently than it was a while back, is I do think that, you don't need to ask Siri what 12 times 14 is or whatever, because you didn't have Siri. Like now that we have calculators like on us at all times. I mean, obviously, you can ask 6 times 8 and people can say 48, but you get into those double digit numbers and it gets a little bit more difficult for kids, but it's faster, it's easier for us to type things into a calculator on our phone. So it more becomes now math is how do we use skills, or how do we use the resources that we have to solve real world problems, however we disguise them. So a lot of word problems, which is harder to learn than going through and filling out a multiplication table. So I think that's now we're less teaching, the most basic skills and more teaching like how to apply, which is I think tougher to learn in a lot of ways. In terms of getting people prepared for when they come out of high school for life in math, I'm on the Windsor High School Site Council, and math is the way that we teach math is something they've been changing a lot recently. They changed the graduation requirement from 2 years to 3 years of math, but they changed the highest level of math from integrated 2 to integrated 1. So essentially there is a lower level, a pre-integrated 1 course for students to take if they come out of 8th grade with like a D in math or an F in math. They can come in and start at a lower level, and that will prepare them, and they'll move to integrated 1. But once they pass integrated 1 and they need that 3rd year of math, students that aren't necessarily ready to move on to integrated 2, there's a lot of different classes that they're instituting and offering, like business math or basic stats, things like that, that will give students skills that they need in real world math. So generally, right now, in order to graduate, which I know doesn't necessarily apply to everybody, but you will come out with either a level of math that is like high enough that you obviously understand how to apply math in general situations. Like I don't learn how interest rates work a tremendous amount in my math classes, but I also have the skills to figure it out if necessary. But the students that don't get to that higher level do have these different classes that are more focused on learning those skills. So the high school, I think, is doing a good job of going down and then finding kids like, you're at this level, okay, we're prepared for that, rather than me like, no, you gotta be at this level, and trying to yank them up. We're starting where they are and moving them to where they need to be. So I do think that I didn't go to our school district for my first 6 or 7 years of learning math. So I can't really speak to the lower grade levels, which I do think is foundational. And I think COVID's going to set people really far back on that. Like I missed integrated 3. So things that happen in integrated 3, I'm a little fuzzy on, but I don't need that as much as I need like 4th grade math, where you're learning multiplication. And so it is hard. And we do have to realize that a 4th grader that missed their 2nd grade year of math, we can't really expect them to know that stuff, because especially when you're in 2nd grade, I can't imagine Zoom calls being very effective. So knowing that, it's harder for students to learn the math we're teaching, especially with the situations of COVID. Succeeding in math is really hard, especially if you are succeeding, then they're like, well, obviously you're not being challenged enough. If it's easy for you, you got to go to the next level. We keep pushing people until they get to the level that's difficult. And that's why math is so hard sometimes, because there's just one 12th grade English class, essentially. There's just one 11th grade English class. But math, there's so many different levels, and you're encouraged to go until it's hard. And if it's not hard, then you're not trying hard enough. So I think that math is hard to succeed at, because if you are succeeding, a lot of times we'll be like, oh, well, then you should be doing something harder. So I think the way that it's set up right now, and of course COVID has a big role in that, it's very hard to succeed in math. And systems of support like this, and systems of support that the high school are putting in place, should help, but we're just putting them in place. So it's hard to see those results yet. So.
Great. Thank you.
I totally agree with that. I just wanted to add one
Very
small thing.
quickly, please.
Yeah, so really quickly, I feel that you had excellent comments, and I feel that the pandemic does play into the hardship of everything. But also, once again, I hope that our conversation will continue about teaching strategies, just because it also matters how teachers teach and what they say. Because, for example, if I'm a teacher and I only tell 5 students in my class that they're college material, but I don't tell the rest of the students that they're college material, that's going to make an impact and an influence in the lives of those students. So it's really, really important to also look critically at those teaching strategies. So there's a story that I wanted to share, but I think I'll reserve that for a future board meeting, because I know I'm short on time. But it really does matter. And like I said, also the research shows that when teachers use an anti-racist lens and a gender-inclusive lens, that does make a influence in the students' performance, no matter what level they're at in, math or English or, literacy. It does matter, the way that the classroom is organized and run.
Okay. Thank you. Well, a broad, wide-ranging set of comments. So one thing that I would ask when you come back, I think something of a timeline that maybe broke it into half-year increments for us to understand as this is going forward. At some point, a 10-foot pole is not going to be the answer from participant employees. It's, get involved and have the pole be 3 feet or 20 feet. I don't know, but there's a piece there. That would be the only piece I think that would help us grapple with this a little bit, as well as that when you come back, let us know what the implications from resources are. And if this is displacing some other efforts, or it's another straw in the camel's back and we need to remove some of the other programs, burdens, initiatives, of which we always take such pride up here that we have so many, please let us know that too, right? Because I think at least in concept, we're very supportive and very excited about this. The devil, as we've heard, is in the details, and good for you for being so passionate about it. Okay, with that, we will thank you and accept this as a report and discussion item, and look forward to hearing from you again. Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Sharon Ferrer. Now getting to a math-related question, 5.5, consideration of approval of agreement by resolution to purchase property at APN 066-170-030 at 476 Ginny Drive, Windsor. Who's the lucky participant?
I can be. So we've
Wonderful.
made an offer. It's been accepted, It has appraised for the amount that we offered. The other party has signed the agreement, and our process is, once we go through this resolution, we are agreeing to purchase the property. We've already agreed to purchase, but this is the finalization. We turn it in.
And I know it's in the agenda, but for those who are watching at home, briefly
Thank you, Bill.
tell us where this property is and what the purchase price is that is part of the agreement.
The address is 476 Ginny. It's just north of Jaguar Way. If you think about the entrance to where you start to go by our baseball field toward our football field, it's just north of that gate, basically. And the purchase price was $250,000.
Okay, and that's within the appraisal?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board before we take a roll call on Resolution 2023-06?
Do we have to do a motion first?
We do, but do we have any comments or questions before the motion, or you can move?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept purchasing this property.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. First by Rich and a second by Malinelli. Any comment or questions? Okay. Any public comment before we take a roll call vote? Okay, bringing it back. Ms. Cox, a roll call vote, please.
Bill Adams?
Yes.
Malinali Lopez? Stephanie Ahmad?
Yes.
Paul Cagorno?
Yes.
Rich Carnation?
Yes.
Student Board Member Jackson Caligari?
Yes.
Okay. Congratulations, and thank you particularly, Jeremy and Rich. I know you were actively and deeply involved in it. And thank you also to our partners. We got a brief from the Director of Parks and Rec. This is part of our joint public effort with Kaiser Park and the master plan and the coordination there on abutting properties. So I think this is a step in the right direction, and kudos to all. Okay, with that, we will move to item 6.1, which is future board meeting items. We have the recurring calendar to make sure our comprehensive safety plan is on for February. So we can have Sarah come back and give us an update on that. Any other parking lot issues? Last time, if you remember, if you flip to the back of the second page, Paul, we have a list of usually 4 or 5 items that we've had board members, there we go, talk about or are pending. Anybody have any others that are on there?
We have one here called land acknowledgement, or acknowledgement. Is that basically, I'm trying to remember, is that basically what these properties that we've?
No.
No,
No.
that was proposed by Malinali.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
I'm
was
sorry.
something that I suggested, and I know that there is a lot of universities and also public institutions and organizations that are making these land acknowledgements in order to honor the
Oh,
fact that we
got it.
stand on Indigenous land.
Right.
So I'm hoping that we can also follow that pattern.
And we have an example in practice. I know the last 2 years when we've been over at North Bay Met's graduations, they start theirs with, so let's talk about that. Perhaps we'll put that on February so we can figure out. I don't know that there's any limitations or criteria. I don't know whether there is language, frankly, that is preferred or potentially with pitfalls, or, I mean, I just would like us to maybe make sure that
I would
we're,
also suggest that maybe we ask our Native American
Yes.
Advisory Council what they
yes, good idea.
recommend. And I
Yes.
know they just met, so maybe we can
Good.
ask them to look at that in March and
Great.
let us know if that's something that they think is appropriate.
Good.
And, you know,
Well-
And I think that that's following, the protocol for a
Mhm.
lot of this work that is being done is to ask the local indigenous tribes to make those recommendations.
Then I think after we get that information, though, I think Eric brought it up before, that I think this is supposed to go to the policy subcommittee to.
It
Or
can. It depends on what we do. So
Oh.
why don't let's shelve, I think, this conversation until we've had a chance to go to our council, and we'll bring it back to see what's proposed. Because if it's a board
Yeah.
policy, yes, it would go through there, but this may not be a board policy. It might be something else.
No, I think what was when we were discussing the last time, and thanks, I couldn't remember what exactly it was about, but it was about our policy about like naming buildings, doing those kind of things and stuff. I think it was all inclusive in that chapter, so to speak, of things like the acknowledgement, that kind of stuff is what I'm saying.
It may
that
be, I don't know that board policy by heart, so I'd have to go and check it out. But I think even with that, we start with the conversation
Sure.
and then decide where we go.
I've got one that I want to bring up, but I want to talk to you and Austin first, because I think I want to make sure that, I read something with the town of Windsor,
Mhm.
and I think it's either their thing is wrong or we may have gave them the wrong nod on some fees and stuff. I got to do a little more research first.
Okay.
But I need to meet with Austin on that, so.
Okay.
Because my recollection is something different than what they had on their website, so, anyhow, that's all.
Any other placeholders to get in there? Our parking lot is there, and we'll be.
Can I ask
put
a
those together.
question?
Yes, sir.
We talked a lot about math. That wasn't the intention tonight, right? Do we want a math specific presentation given to the board, or should we shelve that? I mean, there was just such conversation. I'd like to know.
What is the group conscience on that?
I mean, do we have another, because I know that I think the high school principal was updating us on math. Is that
Mhm.
coming to us anyway?
It can, but that's just high school. And so I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if you want a comprehensive TK-12 overview of math, because we've made significant strides, especially in middle and high school. I mean, I believe we have 4 failing grades in 8th grade, which is
Like 4 students.
4
Oh,
students.
total.
It's unheard
Okay.
of.
It's
So that's a
nuts.
big change.
So it's changed how we even place students.
Can we get
into high
a
school.
presentation like Forrest Harper style?
Dang.
No, I mean, no, I think it would be great to have an overview.
That's what I
Just
mean, because we
for-
could do that.
So it's just kind of highlighting some of the changes from the last time
I
that we
also
got.
have a question, to Jackson's credit, who brought up this, fact that, students are struggling post-pandemic.
Mhm.
Is this something that could be a larger conversation about, what is being successful now that you mentioned that, things are improving? What is being successful? Like what strategies are being used that are helping the situation, with math testing?
I mean, yeah, we can do whatever you would like, honestly. So those are 2 different things though to me.
So
And
Jeremy, here's, Paul made a comment, and this is what I'd like to see. Because I've worked with some of the kids and their homework, and I'm like going, and granted, I was taught a certain way. And then when I see these things, they're going like, oh no, you got to do this, and you move this over here, and they hide it under the bush over here. Then you do this over here, and then you go back and you grab it under the bush, and then you put it back. I'm going, where in the heck are we? You go from here. I was just taught, if you want to get to here, fastest way is straight to it. And all this circling all around and doing these things, I'm like going, how are these kids? No wonder they're confused. I'm confused, and I'm actually good at that part of stuff. So I would like to see, if the board doesn't mind, I'd love to see how we're supposed to be doing some stuff and going through the math. Just kind of see, give us a presentation so that way we know, because
so are you asking, I want to make sure I.
So I've heard 3 different presentations
Exactly. Yeah,
already.
that's why I'm wondering what I'm
So
doing.
how about if I talk to Jeremy?
Okay.
Thank you.
May
Bob.
weave Paul in here, since you have, watch out what you wish for. But truly say, the particular style of teaching as opposed to learning loss and how we're adjusting to that, as opposed to an update,
yeah,
or
overview.
all those things. How about if we do that? And to my mind, it's for what end, right? We get a resource, and it should either be, hey, continue the maintenance of effort, right? From a funding, staffing, TOSA, professional development. All right, we can scale back. That's the question I was trying to ask with Sharon on the MTSS. Does this mean we're replacing something else we're not spending over here because we're going to have to plus that up? So we're either status quo, we're going to declare success and victory, which seems potentially unlikely, or here is the ask that we need to come to you about, right? And I think it seems when we get a presentation like this should be more than a report discussion. It should be a report discussion because we need you to lean towards what action plan is there going to be.
Right. Just so I'm clear, I don't care about the means or the methods. I'm just saying, if we aren't achieving what our goal is, I know that the way I learned 50 years ago, we achieved it. So if we have a different way of doing it, that's wonderful. The fact that now our high school, we have 4 kids out of all those kids.
Middle school, 8th grade.
I'm sorry.
8th grade.
8th grade. Okay. Whatever grade. If we only have 4 kids out of all the kids that we have that they're failing, that is a significant improvement over what we've been doing.
Significant.
So then let's take what they're doing, if that's applicable, and let's duplicate it upline and downline. So again, I don't care the means and methods. I was just saying that 50 years ago, I know that method worked.
Right.
If there's better methods, yippee-ki-yay.
It worked for some.
Okay,
That's what I
so
would say.
let's,
Yeah.
let's do this. I know last year we got a math update. A year or two before that, we got a math update. Let's look at those, see what those are. And I'm happy that Paul and I can work with you, and between you and Sharon, we can figure out, look, what is it that would be useful for us to get updated?
That sounds good.
And I always like to say, so what is it that you want us to do?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Right? And because that, if we're spending time on things, I like when we have report discussion, but frankly, soon on all these, give us the up, down, sideways of where we're going to go with resources, right?
Yes, sir.
Because
Good point.
that's the one thing we can do. And when it's a report discussion, as you have found, we will
Can I make a comment?
start to put meat on the bones when we haven't drawn the animal yet.
I agree with that. I think this presentation, however, we don't know quite yet
Understand?
what we need. That we're not at that point yet,
Would it make
but we will get there.
Would it make, Sharon, thank you for that clarification, because I absolutely concur with you, and I think people got a little ahead of the train. Would it make sense to do a carve out for one of the academic areas, particularly the math program, concurrently while we're working at MTSS, to ensure that your board is up to speed with where we are? Because that seems almost a different approach to the math to say, just think about that. We need to talk about, not necessarily overlaid strictly from MTSS, but there's a subject area that has gotten a lot of comment from people. Would it make sense sometime later in the spring for a something update about math to come in, even while we understand that the math piece of a larger universe in MTSS a year or two down the stream, that isn't necessarily what we're directing. I'm not sure we're up to speed where you are when you're thinking about math. You may have told us there were 4 Fs in 8th grade.
No, that was new information.
I don't know that I ever heard that before.
We just heard it this
and
week.
That's 1% of the students, which, is 1% too many maybe, but it didn't 22% or whatever the numbers were not too long ago. So let's think about that. I think there's a lot of interest, but I know that was sort of all over the mark to say, it sounds as if we would like to have some upgrade on math. I mean, there was shortfalls for the SBAC on English language, and there's equity issues and others, but math continues to be a bugaboo for us. And to figure out how, it seems to me, a baseline common situational awareness of where we are and making sure we're all on the same page of where we are, kind of how we got there, where we're leaning, what MTSS might have as a couple of, blurry paths in the future that aren't determined yet might be helpful.
Yeah, just I can give you guys this report. I haven't released. I mean, we gave it out to all of our
Don't give us
principals.
more data, please
But
don't.
just something
You're gonna
really
give us
brief.
data. I know you are. You
Yeah,
can have
the
it.
percentage of students in 3rd grade that were at or above benchmark in our first administration of the RenStar test, was 35%. The second administration, it was 43. 4th grade went from 50 to 57. 5th grade went from 39 to 44. And in Cali, 3rd grade went from 61 to 72. 4th grade went from 55 to 58, and 5th grade went from 58 to 73.
There'll be a test later.
So there,
Information will be relevant in a
Yeah.
presentation.
so it's positive.
Yeah.
It's positive.
So we'll
Good
work
to
with
go.
you on a placeholder, perhaps not as soon as February, but maybe in
No,
February
probably,
or March. right?
maybe, but we might push that. There's quite a bit in February and
Yeah,
March,
okay.
but
Okay, great.
we'll add it to the parking lot if that's okay.
You're right. I
and then we'll
thought we
figure
were
it
going to
out.
get out by 8:15, but that's okay. Any other passions?
This is just all extra.
Yeah. This doesn't count against my time.
We were done at 8:10.
Okay. Well, and I think it's helpful. We have a new board, right?
Yeah.
A Sharon who now is getting us from saying, hey, don't leave us time. We'll come up with ideas. Any other thoughts that we'd like to look in? And generally, just sort of for Paul, when these come up, we kind of, historically, we've kind of looked to say, do we have at least 2 heads that are nodding that they'd like to hear about? Because at 3, we already have a vote with a quorum. So, we're quite open-ended on these. If someone does like, this is important to me, we spend some time looking on it and then figuring out what the presentation will be. And, is it an action plan? Is it something that really needs to come to us? It may be something that comes out of a superintendent or one of the director's reports. Is there anything from the DO staff, the lucky 5 who are sitting here, and the 3 lucky ones in the back, that we might want to take up? I mean, I know we have a number of things that are coming up this spring, weaving this in, right, with the global umbrella, for example, of portrait of a graduate, I would like to know how these fit together. I loved
Yes, sir.
when you had the integration on the MTSS that, hey, LCAP and the other things that we do, it sure would be good that we know, oh yeah, this seamlessly populates over here as well. And we don't have sort of a piece of pie here and it's a box here and it's a triangle over here, even though they're about the same things. And I think we're getting better at that, but that still is a place where I think there's work to do.
I think we probably need to add to our parking lot Prop 28 as a
Okay.
discussion item.
Okay.
Or
Good.
we could call it the strategic arts plan, either one.
I would prefer strategic arts plan
Yeah.
because I think that's writ large and we have one. There's an action plan that we can start with. Yeah, I think that would be good given some of the financing dynamics that are going on where Peter
Yeah.
robs Paul. Okay. I will tell you, good meeting. We are due to meet February 16th. We again will meet as a group to break some bread on February 6th, and I look forward to that. And thank again my colleagues and Superintendent Decker for stepping up to that. We may have to ask about your grade, Malinelli. No, those are special, and it's special just because we don't get to do that as a board, right? We're there with our significant others, and it's just sort of a fun thing. With that, I would take a motion to adjourn. Oh, come on, we can go on. We
make
can
that
recess back
motion.
to closed session if we want.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Okay,
I'll
thank you.
second.
Okay, with that, we'll adjourn. Thank you very much. Our next meeting will be on February 16th. I have it, yeah. So, plan, as the rep, you gotta come, you gotta give $100 or something.